Hello, good afternoon. It's me, your host, Waylene, back with another edition of Kopi Chats, talking about news. I've got great stuff for you today, this special weekend edition. I've got fewer topics, but man, oh man, are they big ones. Uh, and if you are in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, especially as I am, then this will be might be brand new for you. Okay, so let's start off like this. I've only got a couple of topics, and let me just break it to you right now. There's a commentary on the very popular local newspaper today. The commentary goes, why are some people more immune to falsehoods and what can we learn from them? And this is a topic that's come up over and over again in commentaries on local newspapers recently, because it seems to be a big topic. Very important. There is, in fact, I guess everybody would agree that in the year 2022, there is a lot of fake news floating around online. So, what does this article say, you might ask? Well, let's get into it very quickly. I'll skim it and I'll just give you the high level summary. So, in recent years, there have been initiatives, yes, and a lot of commentary on how to identify and combat fake news. There was a study in 2020, finding some very interesting findings. There's a misinformation immunity gap. There are people, with various levels of ability to discern falsehoods. There are things like those who are older and live in smaller homes tend to have higher trust in local online-only media, have stronger confirmation bias in news seeking and processing, and so on. There was, they also did some screen recording about how people interact with the news, and then they were asked why they did what they did when seeking and verifying information. So they identified some distinct practices among people with stronger immunity against false information. Overall, people turn to a variety of sources to keep up with the news, but those with stronger immunity carefully distinguish news from official sources from news shared by interpersonal networks. I think that's important, right? They were also more skeptical of sponsored articles, as you should be, because sponsored articles means that they're paid for. Those with weaker immunity relied more on their friends and social media for the news. They paid less attention to informational details such as publication dates, which are rather technical, right? You pay attention to the publication date, whether the URL, the domain, blah blah blah.com, is it real or is it something like Straits Times, straitstimesnewspaper.com.sg when you're expecting straitstimes.com. So you might, if you notice these technical details, then you would say, yeah, I can identify, have a better chance of figuring out what's real and what's not. So moving forward, they ask, how do we close this misinfo gap? Well, let's put that to practice today. Today, that's what we're going to do. The first piece of news that we're going to do two. The first one we're going to do is this one from Singapore's former foreign minister, Mr. George Yeo, and he's in a bit of hot soup right now. He shared a post on Facebook from Fox News' Tucker Carlson. Now, you may think, Tucker Carlson, wow, that famous, Fox News hate monger and fake news purveyor extraordinaire. Well, you might think so, but did you know that Fox News' Tucker Carlson Tonight is the highest rated cable news show in history ever? Not just this year, not just for 2 years running, it's ever. It's reported in 2020. So, as I understand it, he's been doing even better since then. So what does this tell you? Isn't it surprising that, and this is reported on The Wrap. Now, if you're paying attention to the previous article that said, there's some technical details, well, The Wrap is extremely well-respected news outlet for news about the media. So ratings, who signed a new contract, that sort of thing. You can read it on The Wrap. So Tucker Carlson Tonight, super popular. Highest rated in history. So is he fake news, like some fringe whack job? Hard to make that argument. But the independent.sg is not nearly as credible as Straits Times, Today Online, or Channel News Asia, which are easily top 3 news sites in Singapore, and I read them a lot. I find them very credible, great for a lot of kinds of news. Whether or not you take their word for it, different matter, but they will at least surface the topic. Okay, so let's go on with this. former foreign minister, shared uncritically debunked Russian claims about biolabs in Ukraine. Wow, which is pushed by Tucker Carlson of Fox News. That's pretty harsh, huh? Debunked already. Former foreign minister of post of Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News has drawn sharp criticism. Yo captioned his post of Tucker's show titled, "Why are we funding this?" as from an unexpected quarter. YouTube's flagging of the show as partly false information did not deter Yo from sharing it a social media platform. Why is it partly false? No idea. So in his show, Carlson amplified a baseless theory promoted by Russian state media accusing U.S. of funding biological weapons labs in Ukraine. There are biological labs inside Ukraine, and since 2005, blah, 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 blah. So in his show, it says here, Carlson amplified a baseless theory promoted by Russian. Who uses the word amplified? Isn't that a little bit, suspiciously specific? It's not a common word that you will see in news reporting. Not even in Singapore, in general, in Southeast Asia. Like, who says that so-and-so amplified the news? It seems like almost seems like a word borrowed from somewhere, that somebody said use this word. A bit odd. Now, they go on to share a little detail about what was actually claimed. Carlson pointed to an interview with Robert Pope, director of the Pentagon's Cooperative Threat, blah, blah, blah. In congressional testimony, Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, was asked by a senator whether Ukraine has chemical or biological weapons. She said that Ukraine has diagnostic and biodefense laboratories. Interesting. At this point, let's take a moment to see what she actually said. Okay, here we go.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're well.
So she said they have bio research facilities, and the Independent reports that Newland's testimony said they have diagnostic and biodefense laboratories. So that is plainly false, right? Because it is misquoting her, adding on meaning to what she said that didn't exist in her own testimony. She was asked point blank, do they have bioweapons facilities? To which she said, oh, they are bio, facilities. She's not saying no, right? And perhaps that should raise a question. Now, let me ask these questions. I don't think these questions ought to be raised, but surprisingly not. We're just told to, ignore it flatly. If Ukraine has diagnostic and biodefense labs, why is the United States involved? I mean, what business have they there? Isn't that worthy of attention? Like, why is the U.S. Undersecretary of State, very senior government official, testifying about labs in a foreign country? Obviously, the U.S. would be funding them, right? If you're there, let's say you're not, now, maybe you would disagree with this thing. Like, that's not clear at all, Valine. Okay, fair enough. I'll take that. I'll take that. If you disagree with, you think that Tucker Carlson made a false claim, maybe you should look into it. Now, but I think we can all see that over here there's a false claim that this her words were twisted into something that they were not. And then the other question that perhaps comes up. Okay, so yes, if the Ukraine has these labs, why is the U.S. involved somehow? That Victoria Nuland is giving testimony. Second question: if the Ukraine has these labs and they are totally innocuous, why is she testifying about them? That is, if they're not a matter of concern and importance, why would she be testifying about them? Why would she not just say, oh, she was asked point blank, do they have bioweapons facilities? And if they're just diagnostic, plain old harmless things like, maybe giving children flu shots, that sort of thing, shouldn't the answer be no? No, we don't. No, they don't. So, very suspicious to say the least. And yet, the issue is taken up. Tucker Carlson expands upon it, and then to debunk it, the Independent adds on some information that doesn't exist in Newland's testimony, and also uses this very strange wording that we don't often see, right? Amplified. So, what exactly is going on? What exactly going on? So Mr. George Yeo drew some criticism from elsewhere. There's been Dr. Cherian George. I think he's a Singaporean academic. He criticized Yeo for sharing uncritically debunked Russian claims about biolabs in Ukraine. Yet we just heard that they exist. So it says here, it goes on that George is a Singaporean academic. He made headlines in 2013 when NTU denied his application to be a tenured professor at the Wee Kim Wee School of Communications. Does that surprise you anymore, dear viewer? If Dr. George, could not distinguish real news from fake, does he deserve to be a tenured professor at a School of Communications and Information? Perhaps not. Also commenting is Kirsten Han, prominent independent journalist, social activist. Why is George Yeo amplifying Tucker Carlson's peddling of the conspiracy theory about secret US-run biolabs in Ukraine? Well, you just heard from Victoria Nuland. She said that they are these labs. So, is it not more, have you not watched the video? Are you not so disinterested, so convinced that it is fake that you would not have an interest, like to find out why is this issue around? What does the actual interview look like? It's right there. I found it trivially. It's very easy to find. But maybe it's because you don't really read much of the you don't go outside of your mainstream news, because I couldn't find this video, the video that I showed you. I had to look on some unusual, small Twitter account, because, well, it's not big news. It's not reported. It's not reported on the mainstream news, like whether it's Straits Times, Today Online, Channel News Asia, or the other large Asian newspapers. I couldn't find it. That says something. And there is a real person called Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland. Here she is on the PBS NewsHour show. PBS is the Public Broadcasting Service of the United States, so it's essentially a government-run broadcasting corporation, a new radio station, I suppose. No, they have many stations. And even if I look on MSN, the best I can do is on MSN Africa, where I know they syndicate an article from a news site called The Citizen, reporting, saying that, yeah, there are. You heard it. I heard it. We saw that, and it was an actual testimony in the United States Congress, a Senate testimony. So it is real. Oddly enough, everybody just piles in on the poor Mr. George Yeo, who was open-minded enough to look at a video clip, a short video clip, just a few minutes, that all his colleagues, all his social circle are against him viewing. Why is that? Whether even independent, allegedly independent journalists are against that. Isn't that strange? Now, talking about fake news, so going all the way back to the original topic, which is, what can we learn? How do we detect falsehoods? Should we have, literacy programs? Can they work if your most trusted news outlets don't want to talk about issues, or your well-known figures like Dr. Cherian George and independent journalists who I follow on Twitter, Kirsten Han, say it's not a thing. It's false. The news media doesn't report it, and the people who bother to talk about it, who are respectable, say, no, forget it, ignore it. How do we expect to find out what's real that way, right? So I suppose there is a limit to what you can do. You can teach people to look at respectable news outlets and identify them, but you can't make them find out the truth from these outlets if the outlets don't talk about things, right? And it's been an ongoing effort. It's been an ongoing effort, among Singapore media to try to combat fake news and conspiracy theories, even as far back as 2020. As you can see here, October 25th, 2020, you may recall that was the year of the US presidential election. This was prior to the elections. And they syndicated an article from Mr. Farhad Manjoo. Farhad Manjoo is a writer for the New York Times. This is his syndicate article. You see it begins here. Lately, I've been putting an embarrassing amount of time into notions like jinxes and knocking on wood. It's the same article that he posted here on the Times. Lately, I've been putting an embarrassing amount of thought into notions like jinxes and knocking on wood. And if you know me by now, you probably know that, there's a twist here. So Mr. Manju writes somewhat further down, still about conspiracy theories. While the media ecosystem wised up to conspiracy theories in some ways, some ways the media has gotten better at identifying them and quashing them and not giving them a chance to spread. And for his examples, he uses Hunter Biden's laptop, which landed with a splat last week, back in 2020, October. Quite different from the breathlessly irresponsible reporting, as he calls it, on the Democrats' hacked emails in 2016, which was big news, spread all over the media, and resulted in a lot of attention being drawn to it. So he's saying, good job, media, for quashing this nonsense story about Hunter Biden's laptop. Such excellent work. And that was republished to Straits Times, and everybody believed it. Of course, because he's a writer for the New York Times. Why wouldn't you believe it, right? Yet, here is Mr. Glenn Greenwald. If you are a news junkie, yes, I am, you'll remember Mr. Greenwald as the journalist who broke the revelations brought by Mr. Edward Snowden, a former NSA contractor who revealed the extent of American NSA spying on American citizens and foreign overseas, non-Americans as well. He writes, Mr. Greenwald writes, it's been 24 hours since the NYT acknowledged the reported emails from a Biden laptop were authentic. And this was in March 18, 2022. 2 whole years later, the New York Times acknowledges that emails from the Biden laptop were authentic. Completely in contradiction with everything that the New York Times has been saying for 2 years. So, thinking back to fake news, how do you identify? How do you tell what is true or not? If you went with the number one, easiest heuristic, number one easiest principle to say, let's just go with the most respectable news outlets that we have, you would have been wrong on this for 2 years. And it's not trivial. It's a huge story. Look at this. Politico in 2020. Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo. Dozens of former Intel. Are they all wrong? Yes, they were all wrong. More than 50 former Intel officials say Hunter Biden smear, they say, smells like Russia. Giuliani and the New York Post are pushing Russian disinformation. It's a big test for the media. Wow. And The Intercept. This week, a group of former intelligence officials issued a letter stating that the Giuliani laptop story has the classic trademarks of Russian disinformation. The Intercept being, ironically, a media outlet co-founded by Glenn Greenwald, which he later left because they were trying to censor his reporting, and he was having none of it. A man of great principle. So, but Waylin, you say that there's a new revelation. Where is it? I hear you say. Fear not, dear viewer. I have it for you right here. So here we go. Let's start at the top. Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues. All right. Published on March 16th, 2022. So, barely a couple of days ago. So it talks about the developing story. Hunter Biden has in fact paid $1 million in taxes. These were undeclared income, and he did not pay the taxes on it, and he was definitely going to go to jail if he didn't pay those taxes, and now he has. But there's a federal investigation because his laptop was actually turned over to the authorities, who, despite what the media say, media can say it's fake, but once it's turned into the FBI, they are obliged to look into it, and look into it they did, and not with any kind of speed, mind you, but they went ahead with it. And where they are today is that the broad federal investigation continues. And what have they found? Well, if you've been reading news like the New York Post, which incidentally is America's oldest newspaper, for the past couple of years, you would have some idea, about Chinese business dealings, Ukrainian business dealings, lots of cocaine and prostitutes, and various other non-family friendly things. But the really important ones that I like to point out to you, I think, lie somewhere here. Yes. People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden and Mr. Archer, that's a business partner of Joe Biden, who is now in jail, and others about Burisma, Ukrainian energy company, and other foreign business activities. So there are a lot of players and lots of foreign business activity, Chinese, Ukrainian, and so on. Those emails were obtained by the NYT from a cache of files that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in the Delaware repair shop. Whoa, wait a moment. Wasn't this supposed to be fake news? Russian disinformation? Suddenly, 2 years on, with no acknowledgement whatsoever, the New York Times is happy to refer to it as true, verified. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. Well, does this get juicy? A little bit, yes. In some of the emails, Mr. Biden displayed a familiarity with FARA, which is called the Foreign Agent Registration Act in the United States. If you say, you work for a foreign company, like say Burisma, which was the Ukrainian energy company referenced earlier, you have to register. You have to register the government to let them know that, I represent this company now, and I'm working for them, and I'm trying to, help them process some paperwork, get registered, meet the right regulatory officials, and so on. I'm just a well-connected individual. I know how the government works, and I will do this service for them, and I just register my name. But it seems here Mr. Biden had familiarity with this act and had a desire to avoid triggering it. In one email to Mr. Archer, his partner, Hunter outlined his vision for working with Burisma. He indicated, a visit by VP Biden at the time, called him my guy. Should be characterized as part of our advice and thinking, but what he will say and do is out of our hands. We will need to temper expectations regarding that visit. And then soon after, Mr. Biden traveled to Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, about a week after the email. Interesting. Did he arrange it? No, probably not. Probably it was part of Joe Biden's regular job as VP. But did he have additional things to do? Possibly. We don't really know. We don't know. All we have is just hints. In the same email, Hunter Biden indicated to Burisma that we need to know in no uncertain terms that we will not and cannot intervene directly with domestic policymakers. Yeah. And that we will need to abide by FARA and any other U.S. laws in the strictest sense across the board. Yes. So he's aware of it, and he's trying to avoid registering, as a foreign agent, which he didn't do. He did not do that, which is why this is an issue. So in the end, it says here, Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer, so on, these other entities did not register under FARA on behalf of Burisma, although it appears that Hunter may have been speaking to his father about Burisma issues, and at least, he's talking about what kind of, we need having to set expectations, abiding by the laws, while running business, advocating for Burisma. So if he mentions his father, it seems like there would be something to do with his father. Right. So if you're interested in this, I will share the link to this rather in-depth article by Mr. Glenn Greenwald, who writes now on this website of his called the Glenn Greenwald, his Substack account. Substack's where he does his writing now. The New York Times now admits the Biden laptop is authentic. It was called Russian disinformation, and you can see it here. And Mr. Greenwald is a terrific writer and utterly ruthless with his journalistic, his skewering of his opponents, and you'll be able to enjoy that. I'll leave the link in the show notes in the description below. Check it out. Now, you may wonder, like, wow, is Mr. Greenwald really that respectable? Yes, actually, he's won so many awards. I didn't even bother to list them out in the. I didn't bother to find a page for them. They're just appearing all over the place. There are many different awards. You can see here, Cultural Freedom Award, blah, blah, blah. And they're not even, I think he even won the Pulitzer Prize, which is the highest award, as I understand it, that a investigative journalist can win. So he is extremely, extremely respected, and such a mercurial, such a difficult character that he could not stick with. He originally started with The Guardian when he covered Edward Snowden, and then subsequently left it to start his own outlet called The Intercept, which also could not deal with him, and he had to leave there. But now he writes independently and continues his great work. Now, has the media been talking about this revelation, about this Hunter Biden emails? No, there's a media blackout. As you can see, media blackout, CNN, MSNBC, ABS, CBS, NBC completely avoid the New York Times report that verified Hunter Biden's emails. So, is this any surprise? No, probably not. Not at all. Very unfortunate. Now you start to notice that, okay, the mainstream media won't touch it, although the New York Times is oddly enough, the sole shining light that decided to at least acknowledge it briefly. And the denial goes all the way to even the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki. You can see here in October 2020, no less a figure like herself also joined in. Now, she wasn't White House press secretary at the time, but already, of course, she's a well-known figure in the media circles, and she also amplified the fake news story. Has there been any retraction? No, absolutely not. Of course. Are you insane? So if you were to be looking to, find a reliable way to distinguish what's real and what not, and you decided to rely on the most trusted names in news, would you have succeeded in this instance? No, you would have failed utterly, miserably. Would it have been your fault? No, not at all. It's not. The landscape of the news that we're presented with just is not conducive to being able to identify what's real and what's false. In the latest reporting on this issue, let's see. Oh, no, sorry. The Straits Times did mention briefly, and you might say, okay, here's what I want to say about this. You might say that, well, maybe the timing didn't work out that well, like people didn't really know at the time that they just went along with the best that they knew at the moment that they wrote. The New York Times, 2 years late, but so be it, better late than never, which I would agree with. And maybe, Straits Times and other media outlets in our part of the world, we just get it late. And maybe, we don't, it can't really be our fault, right? Maybe. Well, look here. Here it is. December 10th, 2020. What does it say here? Oh, Biden's son Hunter under investigation for tax affairs. So he's been under investigation for a long time. The New York Times piece that I showed you earlier is an update, right? It's just March 16, 2022. So it's been going on for some time, and he's finally paid his taxes. But there are several other questions to answer, I suppose, because he's dealing with foreign companies, big companies that he may have spoken to his father. You don't know if he uses influence, and that would be illegal, right? So in 2020, what was said about this, right? Let's see. Trump attacks on Biden. Since 2019, Trump and his Republican allies have, attacked Hunter for his dealings with Ukraine and China, and there were unconfirmed reports that a Hunter Biden laptop was dropped off at a Delaware repair shop. So already they acknowledge that it's there, the Straits Times, but they continue. No evidence of wrongdoing emerged. The New York Post reported in October that FBI seized the laptop in December 2019. Right, but is this correct? I actually can give you an answer to that question. It is not. So here you go. This was in December 10th, right? December 10th. The New York Post reports about this smoking gun stuff, this stuff about the Hunter Biden laptop as early as, October 14th over here. Smoking on email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP dad. Here's the Ukrainian businessman, Vadim Pozharsky. Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and pleasure. Wow. So, and remember, this cache of emails is verified, right? Verified. And the New York Post recognizes that as well here. A little later on, October 14th, the Department of Justice reportedly agrees Hunter Biden emails are not Russian disinformation. So they verified it. So by December 10th, it's nearly 2 months on. But the Straits Times is unable or unwilling to read that verification, to understand it, and then to report upon it. Isn't that remarkable? So you can see here, this is how we understand this. They write here AFP, meaning that this parts of this report were taken from the AFP source. So they sourced it from there, but clearly did not make the effort to cross-check it elsewhere. So, does it surprise you now that, are you surprised that you were exposed to fake news? We can't really tell what's real and what's false. Even the professionals who are meant to know these things, they didn't know or they didn't care that this fake news is being propagated. Is it reasonable to expect that the average person like you and I will do much better? I doubt it. And I'm not saying that I know, what's real and what's fake and only I do. No, that's obviously untrue. I am fully confident, very confident, there'll be plenty of things for which I have no idea what's true. And even on this matter, do I know the full extent of what's true? Have there been some shady business dealings, or have there been some laws broken? I don't know. Nobody knows. But does it look shady, and has there been some stuff that has not been reported truthfully? Yes. I think that's the best we can do. We can identify when little bits of things don't add up. And that's what I try to do anyway. Right? We just have to crawl inch by inch forward towards the truth. That's the best we can do. All right, moving on. Now, I'm finally done with Hunter Biden and his laptop. In a totally different news, China praises Ukraine resistance, pledges economic support. This was a couple of days ago. What does it say? China's ambassador to Ukraine has praised the strength of Ukrainian people and promised to respect the choices of its sovereign government, in a subtle move to balance its pro-Russia stand. So at a meeting with regional authorities in Lvov, I believe that's how it's read, I think it's Chinese ambassador Fan Xianrong pledged to help Ukraine rebuild after the war. His message was a slight departure from the official line in Beijing, which still maintains general support for Moscow. China is a friendly country for Ukrainian people. As an ambassador, I can responsibly say that China will forever be a good force for Ukraine. So, let's see. This is an interesting report, yes, because apparently it was not reported in Chinese media. This is the furthest China has gone to offer rhetorical support for Ukraine and its choice to align with the West. Let's see. Yes, Fan's meeting wasn't disclosed by the Chinese embassy and is yet to be reported by Chinese media or appear on the country's social media platforms, officially at least. So, this is very, very gentle, very gentle. Just Ukraine has actually invited China to mediate, in the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine before. That was covered in an earlier video of mine. I think that was several episodes ago. But that's okay. We don't really have to bother with that. Just take note that China does have relations with both countries and is trying to show strong support for Russia while not alienating Ukraine, which is very difficult because Ukraine is calling for help, has even asked China to mediate, and China has not really reciprocated. The best that they can do so far up to this point is to get their ambassador in Ukraine to give some gentle, very lukewarm support, which doesn't even get covered in Chinese media. So Ukraine probably feels pretty shitty right now. So which is entirely understandable then that China's very, very angry at Taiwan. This is the best. Taiwan, well done. So what Taiwan has done here is that, China says Taiwan is taking advantage of Ukraine as the island sends more aid. Yes, Taiwan indeed has sent aid. Taiwan announced a second donation of $11.5 million to help refugees, with their president Tsai giving a month of her salary. Beijing says that Taiwan is using the Ukraine issue to validate their existence and piggyback on a hot issue. I would say absolutely. Absolutely. But deservedly so. And this is clearly something that China cannot easily counter because they're stuck in a bad position. They have to be friendly to Russia, but they've also had relations with Ukraine and want to keep it friendly as well. So what are they to do, right? There is absolutely nothing they can do about this situation except to complain, which they do. It's just really, really good politics from Taiwan. Really good politics. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention. Now, you may wonder, oh yeah, so they've sent aid to Ukraine. I wonder who else has sent aid to Ukraine. Well, I looked it up, and the Bangkok Post, which I understand is very respectable in Thailand, has this to say. They have compiled a nice little list. Okay, what have we got? On military aid, U.S., EU, Canada, Germany, Sweden, France, Britain, Belgium, Netherlands, Czech Republic, Portugal, Greece, Romania. All European countries, of course, they're the ones most concerned. You know, it's all in their backyard. Humanitarian aid, Italy, US and Britain, France, Netherlands, Spain, Israel, Turkey, and Greece. So that's what we have. And now Taiwan, obviously. Now, I don't mean to be unkind, but I feel like this bears repeating. So if you've been following my show, you'll know that for the past few episodes, I've been talking about Singapore, you know, taking a stand, very rare for Singapore, very unusual thing. Took a stand, decided to impose sanctions on Russia, responding to the Biden administration's call to do so. Now, Singapore's foreign minister has said that, you know, this is a principled stand we're taking. You know, we can't stand for large countries taking advantage of small countries. You know, we have to stand for the rule of law, you know, diplomacy, all that good stuff. But notably, Singapore is not on the list of countries that have sent any kind of aid to Ukraine. So it seems rather unfortunate, right? Because, well, if you really want to help and you want to be productive and you want to encourage, you know, a world where smaller countries will be protected, do you not also want to promote a world where smaller countries will be helped? Now, everybody, I think, in Southeast Asia will consider Singapore one of the richest countries around. But if we're going to impose sanctions on Russia, could some money not be spared to donate to Ukraine? Yeah, that feels like a missed opportunity more than anything. There was an opportunity, you know, to really create some goodwill, take a stand, but also show humanity. And it was missed. It's just, in contrast, you know, the contrast with Taiwan is that Taiwan saw an opportunity and took it, and it's great. Beijing has no chance. Nothing they can say about that. And it's great for Taiwan's image and branding. And it just seems like something that Singapore missed out on. That's all I want to say about that. All right. I've come to the end of my prepared material, as always. Today's has been a little bit of a special focus more heavily than usual on fake news. And also, I don't often get to show the great discrepancy between, you know, what is seen in like mainstream respected news outlets and their shortcomings, their failings. Like most of the time, if you talk about fake news, well, it's very easy. You know, this one's from some tiny website that nobody cares about. Yes, but not in this case. In this case, these are well-known or concerning well-known figures, and the implications are quite a bit more substantial. You know, not like a propagandistic, you know, short WhatsApp video or a simple, you know, image that way. So I hope that this gives you food for thought. You know, as usual, if you enjoyed this, smash the like button. follow and subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the good stuff. It's been great talking to you. Hope you have a great weekend. I already have a great weekend having spoken to you. And I'll talk to you again next time around, maybe tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.